Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I'm embattled, energized, and ecstatic to bring you the review for Dragon Quest Heroes, The World Tree's Woe, and The Blight Below. The Dynasty Warriors game with the long name, and filled to the brim with fictional content from another game, and of course, we're talking about Dragon Quest, and its assorted menagerie of titles. This also isn't the first foray into twin fantasy being slammed together in the Dynasty Warriors engines, as the Hyrule Warriors game took Zelda and rubbed it up against Dynasty Warriors for a game that did, for Zelda, what this game hopes to do for Dragon Quest, offer a unique take on an established franchise, and possibly bring in some new fans as well. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Dragon Quest Heroes, cross-eyed tiger mini-bosses, warriors with their own post office for fan mail, and enemy AI that makes Jaden Smith look like a rogue scholar. Graphics are up first. You know, the honest truth is, I haven't been a fan of the Dynasty Warriors graphics engine in some time. Despite the system they're on or how well they run, they've always had a uniquely bare look to them, like Unicron vacuumed them up while trying to destroy the world, and the reliance on mostly two-legged fighter clones as enemies never helped break the eye away from the basic as bones world design. For the first time since forever, I can look at a title, no matter how tangentially connected to the originals, and say, this doesn't look half bad at all. Now, of course, the game is lifted up on the teardrop shoulders of the amazing monster designs that have always existed in Dragon Quest games. The worlds feel far less barren than any title prior to them except for Hyrule Warriors, and that's probably because both flood the world with so many different styles of creatures in the same 40-foot by 40-foot section, it becomes almost confusing to the eye. Graphics are colorful and never miss a beat, whether I was ice staff hammering a group of cyclops and trolls, or tension blasting a gathering of shield-bearing knights, or even just beating the ever-loving crap out of a dragon that didn't look quite mean enough to elicit the overreaction of outright hate and devastating damage that I unleashed on him during that battle. The game looks really good, not amazing, but it handles the enemies, explosions, and specials with a slickness that's a bit unexpected. I am playing on the PC, of course. And even in massive boss battles with cyclops the size of apartment buildings, everything looked good. Now, you need to remember this is indeed Dragon Quest, which means the art design and their texturing skew towards the comedic and not towards the realistic or detailed, which means an assorted bedazzlement of enemy characters that usually look like something you want to hug or drew on a peachy before your first 8th grade dance, versus worrying about them eating you. In a way, that sort of adds to the darkness of the tale, which I found cool. Now, as for the overall animation, it's excellent, with various characters flooding the world from different Dragon Quest games, lending a dual familiarity visually to this title, one part Dynasty Warriors and of course one part Dragon Quest, but mixed incredibly well together. Now, if you think about it too long, it's bound to confuse. The rare times you aren't lighting enemies on fire via Russian-Turkish diplomacy tactics, you're in a couple various hub town areas that look the part of Dragon Quest areas, but sort of appear artificially broken up to look larger than they should be, especially a later airship, which is really cool, but it's also both cumbersome and artificially broken off into odd hub sections. It just feels different than anything else. It wasn't bad, it was just odd. If there's one weakness to these titles that carries on through this one, it's the location still being structurally basic as well as lacking in overall imagination. As a package, though, I would say that the game's presentation is excellent. From the characters to the enemies and to the spells that they cast and the attacks that they do, it just looks really, really fitting for what they're trying to present. Sound, music, and voice.
Summoning them here.
That has to be it. Okay, let's look around and make sure there aren't any more like it nearby.
Burn! Inferno Slash!
And in this grouping, sound is always up first, and my hat's off to these guys. Their decision to stay relatively close to the Dragon Quest roots means that the usually cheery audio from those titles continues here in every way, from the menus to the churning of your item creation station as it throws out cool things, to the battering of embattled foes with boomerangs that spit out fiery phoenix whenever thrown. The sounds are very good and fit the visual tone, though I admit that during heavy battles, the higher end could get really cluttered, especially as various spells, specials, and tension meters were going off all around you. It wasn't always noticeable, but it was there regardless. Luckily, it didn't result in anything catastrophic like noise crunch, but it was there. Music. Now, in a unique musical choice, the tracks are all apparently from past Dragon Quest games, musical pieces that are from those, and though that's great from a nostalgic point if you're coming to this title in that mindset, but I feel the lack of original tunes isn't a good choice, and I would have loved to have had some fresh music piping into my ear holes, as this is indeed a completely new game. It just seems a tiny bit lazy, to be honest. Now, there might be a couple new ones, but it was really hard to tell because most of them certainly didn't seem to be that way. Also, the music bitrate sure did seem to be very low during some songs, resulting in a decidedly terrible tin can sound at particular points. This was tested on 2 other systems to verify it wasn't a system issue. It's definitely there. Some people won't be able to hear that, but I could. Voice. Now, this is going to be very hit and miss for some people. After a while, the English voices really grew on me, and I was very satisfied with much of their delivery, but for many fans, this is not going to make them happy, and they're just not going to like the voices regardless. Then again, that's par for the course in titles like this. As a complete package, I would just say that the voices seem to fit for the most part, though the main character, I really actually didn't like his voice actor too much. Gameplay. Now let's just get this out on the table. This isn't new. You run around using Dragon Quest characters trying to find out why the monsters you got along with for ages suddenly turn bad. So basically imagine the family animals going insane, and the best way to understand what's up is to cut them into pieces and then drive around the countryside hoping to discover what caused them to go insane by reading their entrails. It's a dark tale, really, but ultimately it's handled with a good deal of humor despite that. As you adventure, you gather 10 plus heroes from other Dragon Quest games, all with their own special abilities. When in towns, you can upgrade characters with skills and abilities, craft items with reagents you collect after slaughtering the family pets, and change up your party makeup, put people in and out that you didn't have prior. Now, while the skills and abilities are somewhat shallow once you understand the battle system, they are still very enjoyable to employ, but also suitably fantastic to watch, which I think helps as they play out on screen. Now, when in battle, 4 of the total characters you have basically enter areas, see a brief cutscene about the current situation, make a couple comments, and then go completely batshit until everyone is dead but them. In an excellent turn of use for gameplay, though, there is an almost tower defense style of gameplay that comes up here, as many times you need to defend both static and moving targets within the game. It might be a door one level or a mayor with a death wish the next, and you need to use tactics, skill, and cunning to keep the enemy from destroying or killing that target. Characters are different, but don't really differentiate themselves enough to feel like gameplay was drastically different with different teammates, and I think that that really actually hinders this title. I'm not saying that they aren't different. I'm just saying that the giant splash I expected for gameplay differences using different teammates really never sort of showed up. However, the push-pull of the combat is the game's highest point here and does noticeably separate itself from past Dynasty Warriors games. When you jump into a battle area, maws open up. These are basically giant monster-spilling black holes, and by traveling to them you can destroy their creators and close them up. But many times that might leave some other area or item undefended that you have been tasked to keep safe. That's where monster coins also come into it. Basically, when killing monsters, sometimes they eject a monster coin. Pick it up and then you can summon that monster. Think that old bastard in Altered Beast who brought you back from the grave, and then replace him with you, and that's pretty much what's occurring. Kill monsters, collect their shiny souls, raise them back up. When you drop them, most monsters fight in that local area, taking out the enemy, while a couple are one-time use, larger or more powerful creatures as well. For example, you can block off one path to the item you're protecting by dropping off a golem and a slime, while keeping the other area free by choking it with your heroes' bodies and taking over there manually. It's a very sound game system, and it does 2 things really well. The first thing it does well is it hides the absolutely terrible AI. Let's be honest, Dynasty Warriors has good AI, sort of like politicians have good decision-making plans. Additionally, here, the enemies can take forever and a day to hit you. It's like, sure, they turned evil, but just sort of evil, maybe evil light, and many of them seem to have just joined up because their friends did, and they thought they were going to a party and they didn't want to be left out. It doesn't mean they can't kill you or won't kill you, but goddamn, these are some sedate bad guys and are apparently on ambient auto attack mode, very happy to just sort of rub up against you for a bit before trying to eat your face. However, the large number of them and their unique types, as well as the typical Dynasty Warriors gameplay, mixed with the monster coins, means that's actually hidden fairly well. When it comes down to it, ignoring that AI for a second, that's actually good game design to hide that weakness behind a strength. Now, the other aspect the game handles well is it allows for you to build up your tension meter quickly, which is basically this game's uber attack move that is different for each character in the title. When you get enough tension, you can run around attacking with special moves that don't now take any soul juice, and then when you're ready, unleash the major tension attack your character has and pretty much destroy everybody on screen. That means for the most part the game is almost always exploding into fiery, icy electrical messes, keeping the battles dynamic, even if that's actually a bit of a lie if you look closer and under the surface. But in the end, why should you? Once you've completed the mission area, you go back to camp to craft items, upgrade and perhaps equip new items, upgrade character skills, talk to people you've met along the way, or buy special orbs to increase various statistics. There are enough statistics here to feel somewhat like an RPG, but make no mistake, other than those statistics itself, it's really not. And honestly, you should drop down to your knees and thank the blue gooey gods for it, because in the end, one place where this game fails are the absolutely arbitrary pauses built into the title when it comes to menu and narrative. It can appear like lag, but it's not. Get into a discussion and expect your yes and no answers to take a half to a full second to ever pop up. The pause for a word to pop up doesn't bother you the first 10 times, but after the 40th orb purchase, it makes you want to tear your hair out. Now, at times, Dragon Quest Heroes may seem shallow, and in many ways it is, but Dragon Quest's use of monster coins, a large fictional universe filled with a huge variety of creatures, and the massive world-cracking specials that the characters can pull off means that it almost never gets repetitive, and in fact, most of the time feels like you asked a bunch of gods from old mythology to come over and then wreck the shit out of your own house. It's over the top, it's colorful, it's also hilariously fun. Now, that doesn't mean all is perfect in slime busting land. Listen, there is some grinding. You may have to do it, and you can return to places and perform challenges to do that, as well as find new locations when you discover maps that enemies have had on them when you kill them. Additionally, depending on the makeup of a level, it can either be absolutely bombastic and over the top, or somewhat sedate and actually a bit slow, depending on coin drops and if the right mix of monsters comes into play. Lastly, many of the boss battles are fairly rote, that require all the strategy of, hey, look over there, gameplay, as you run around behind them. Not all of them do that, but many do. Fun factor. Listen, the DW games are somewhat shallow beasts. They've always hinged on a large character set and enemy numbers to hide any of those shortcomings, or at the least mitigate them. Dragon Quest does it differently, exposing newcomers to the Dragon Quest fiction while adding newer strategies that haven't been pushed in the prior titles, except in the aforementioned Hyrule Warriors title. I'm not gonna lie, taking on a fan favorite like Bianca or Jessica and wreaking untold havoc on the teardrop-shaped enemies of humanity was absolutely awesome. Add to that the defensive style of gameplay and the change from the typical Dynasty Warriors run everywhere all the time combat, and I found myself enjoying this despite many, many hours of playing it. Something that the other titles just did not do for me. I would say, despite moments of slowness, I had an absolute blast, and there's a momentary feel of magic at times when you come around a corner, see 40 slimes, 2 cyclops, and a cross-eyed tiger all sleepily trudging towards you, hoping to possibly hypnotize you into death, and then suddenly they end up killing you, and you sort of can't figure out how. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is a buy, though it is not without its faults. While solidly based usually in the role-playing game genre, the Dragon Quest games have always felt a little different than others, now jamming that into Dynasty Warrior style gameplay, but still keeping the freshness of the art design as well as the comical writing, and you have an enjoyable romp that may get repetitive, but usually that's far after you either beat the game or you've already got your money out of it anyway. So as always, I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. If you get a chance, maybe check out the Patreon to keep us going, keep the honest reviews flowing. As always, peace out.